Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. उठाओगे? बस गाना कहता है. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sri Sri Rukmini Dwarkadhish ki, Jagannath Vallabh Subramaya Sudarshan ki, Sri Sri Karnathai ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, His Grace Shyam Sundar Prabhu ki. So this is our great privilege to have amongst us His Grace Shyam Sundar Prabhu. Shyam Sundar Prabhu is a very dear disciple of Srila Prabhupada who joined the movement in 1967 in Frederick Street, San Francisco. Of course, he was already connected to ISKCON in an indirect way through his close friends who were connected from New York. आप सबको पता है कि लंदन में श्रीला प्रभुपाद ने जब प्रथम 3 दंपतियां भेजी थी प्रचार हेतु, उनमें से एक प्रभु जी और उनकी धर्मपत्नी मालती माता जी थी, और इस्कॉन के पहली बच्ची भी सरस्वती माता जी, वो भी इनकी पुत्री है। अभी उनके भी बच्चे हो चुके हैं। तो इस्कॉन में यहाँ पे जगन्नाथ जी देख रहे हैं। इस्कॉन का पहला जगन्नाथ जी किसने स्कल्प्ट किया था? श्याम सुंदर प्रभु ने किया था। रशिया में श्रीला प्रभुपाद के साथ कौन गए थे? और इस्कॉन इंडिया का रजिस्ट्रेशन में सिग्नेचर किसने किया था? क्रॉस मैदान में सबसे बड़ा बलून अरेंज कराया था किसने? अभी आपके सामने चेसिंग राइनोस विद द स्वामी, गेंडे का शिकार कैसे करना है प्रभुपाद ने उनको सिखाया था। हमको भी प्रभु जी सिखाएंगे, बुक से कुछ एक्सर्ट्स बताएंगे। बहुत सारे चमत्कार अभी इस बुक के लॉन्च में ही हो चुके हैं, बाद में मैं बताऊंगा। अभी विदाउट स्टॉपिंग द मैजिक, हिज ग्रेस श्याम सुंदर प्रभु।
हरे कृष्णा, हरे बोल, हरि बोल। Thank you all for staying so late tonight. We were caught in the hellish streets of Delhi. And now we are in the heavenly realm of Dwarkadish. Thank you so much. Normally I speak for about 1 hour, but we are running so late tonight, I better cut it a little shorter. I can talk all night? All right. Well, if you get bored, just stop me. I guess my deepest gratitude first I should offer to my friend Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. I remember him from 1968 in Montreal, Canada. He was just a young boy bowing at Srila Prabhupada's feet. And to Rishi Kumar and to all my really good friends here in Delhi, you people and new God brothers and God sisters here at Rukmini Dwarkadish Temple. Most of all, my deepest gratitude to Lord Krishna for giving me this long life, almost 78 years now, to remember and glorify the great accomplishments of my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. who appeared in the Western world 54 years ago to plant this ancient seed of Krishna consciousness in a world gone mad. Most of you know the story, how it happened, how the Hare Krishna culture quickly ignited and spread around the world in a very short time. I won't spend a lot of time on the earliest days. The earliest days I've covered already in this volume 1, which is mostly in San Francisco and London. But I've come to bring you volume 2 tonight. This is the story of Srila Prabhupada in India, starting in 1970. 50 years ago, when Srila Prabhupada appeared among us, young Westerners, he seemed to us to be the perfect person. We'd never met anyone so perfect. He was the perfect teacher. He could answer any question you asked him to your full satisfaction. And he was our best friend. He seemed to love us more than even our parents or anyone we'd ever met. And he never made any kinds of mistakes. His physical actions, his physical beauty were so exceptional and so rare to see that we started to follow him easily. He was on a mission, he told us, to change the world. That's a big mission. Most of all, he filled our lives with laughter. Srila Prabhupada was always jolly. And being with Swamiji was the most fun we'd ever had. He taught us about this amazing way of action called devotional service. Swamiji explained to us that Krishna most appreciates devotees who risk the most on his behalf. If you risk everything for Krishna, he must personally intervene to remove obstacles to your service. Krishna made us this promise in Bhagavad Gita, didn't he? You fight on the battlefield, win or lose, I will protect you, but you must give me everything. He said two things. You become Krishna conscious yourself, and secondly, you spread Krishna consciousness. That's all Prabhupada told us. Become Krishna conscious and spread Krishna consciousness. Moreover, he said, the secret to this is that you get 2 for the price of 1. Everyone likes that idea. 2 for the price of 1. By spreading Krishna consciousness, you become Krishna conscious. That's the system. Devotional service. Dare to pursue the biggest goals for Krishna. That was the spirit. Most of you know how it happened, how we spread around the world so fast. So I'll just start out tonight with talking about Volume 2. It begins in October 1970. It describes the 2-year period when Srila Prabhupada brings his Western disciples to India and the amazing adventures which followed. A few months shy of 50 years ago, October 1970, Srila Prabhupada arrived in Bombay with 20 of us, his Western disciples. And the reason and purpose for Srila Prabhupada's mission to India is really nicely explained by him in a purport to a verse in 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll just summarize that verse, that purport. He said that for 2,000 years, India has been subjugated by foreigners. And as a result, the legs of progress, India's legs, are now lame. On the other hand, he said, the people of the Western countries have been blinded by material opulence. So he said, best thing is you combine the two, the lame man of India and the blind man of the West, and become a whole person. He put it in, to summarize, he says, in short, the material advancement of the Western countries and the spiritual assets of India should combine for the elevation of all human society. That was Prabhupada's mission. To create this partnership, the lame man and the blind man, East and West, to create this partnership was and is the purpose of Srila Prabhupada's mission in the world. So think about this perfect historical window, 1970. India is a young country. You're only 20 years old. For the first time in millenniums, you are forging a national identity. You're young. And at the same time, Srila Prabhupada came back into India to create the rebirth of Krishna consciousness in this land where Krishna was forgotten. Perfect historical timing. Huh? And into this new land, struggling new land of India, came this 74-year-old man with 20 foreign, inexperienced youngsters. We came here on one-way tickets, one-way airline tickets. We had no money in our pockets. We had no friends here. None of us had ever been to India. We were dropped into this very strange and exotic land. In fact, our imaginary idea of India was something like this. We thought, when we thought of India, we saw this guy with cloth wrapped around his head, and he was playing a flute while the cobra came up out of the basket. This was our idea of India when we came. And Srila Prabhupada called us here by letters. In those days there was no cell phones, no emails. He sent 20 of his disciples individually spread out around America and Europe and said to us in the letter, meet me in Bombay on the first week of October. That was all. We didn't even know each other. We just all came here because Prabhupada ordered us to come to Bombay. There was no plan. He didn't set out any plan for us to spread Krishna consciousness. We just kind of appeared here because he told us to. So he immediately became the general of our little army. He had to do everything. Prabhupada had to teach us how to eat here, sleep, how to travel here, how to manage the money. He managed everything. He did everything, Srila Prabhupada. He was like the commander-in-chief of our little army. And so whatever he told us to do, we did. The whole India yatra, the rebirth of Krishna consciousness in your country, was all Prabhupada's idea and his doing alone. At our first big public meeting in Bombay in October 1970, it was a huge all-India conference of Hindu leaders from all over India. It was called the Bharatya Sadhu Samaj. And at this meeting, Prabhupada famously said, so practically millions of people in Western countries are chanting Hare Krishna and taking up this, your Indian spiritual culture. Now you have forgotten. You want to be like them, after money and motor cars. Now they want Krishna, that is all. They want your spiritual treasure house, which you have neglected. This is your wealth, Bhagavad Gita. why you do not give. So this was sensational news for the people of India. The West wants our spiritual culture. This was revolutionary. That night, Prabhupada gathered us in his room and he told us the story. He said that it's traditional that if a Maharaj in India marries an English wife, they call her his white elephant. He said, now you are all my dancing white elephants. So Srila Prabhupada's fame and the fame of his dancing white elephants quickly spread around India. It was national news in every newspaper in the country, front page headlines. Bhaktivedanta Swami has done something wonderful and unique in India. And when we first arrived here in India, we expected to see Krishna everywhere. But we couldn't find Krishna anywhere in this country. In Bombay, the biggest city in India, we couldn't find any Krishna temples. There were no pictures of Krishna anywhere. We thought this was going to be all Krishna. We saw Ganesh on some of the taxi cabs, on the dashboard of the taxis. We saw Ganesh. We saw Shiva was quite popular. Yeah. We saw Hanuman here and there. And we saw this goddess with 8 arms with all the skulls around her neck, like a garland. We saw her quite a few places, but we couldn't find Krishna here. This is very important for you to know this. You must understand the past in order to appreciate your own present experience with Krishna all around you. To appreciate what Srila Prabhupada has done here in India. 50 years ago, there was practically no Krishna consciousness left in India. And now Krishna's name, it's the most popular name for God in India. Krishna, he's everywhere. Krishna Palace Hotel, Krishna Sweet Shop, Krishna Bicycle Shop. Krishna's everywhere in India now. All because of Srila Prabhupada. Well, all the stories are here in this book, second volume. I won't spend a lot of time reading from it tonight or telling too many stories, just to give you a little taste. From Bombay, we went to Amritsar, Indore, Surat, and then to Kumbh Mela in Allahabad in January 1971. As you know, Kumbh Mela, millions of spiritual pilgrims come there. And our camp at Kumbh Mela for 1 month was the most popular camp at Kumbh Mela. Thousands of people a day came to see this Swami from Bhaktivedanta Swami and his American disciples. It was the main attraction. And one thing we Americans knew how to do was to put on a show. We had seen these pandal shows around India, so we decided to do the biggest pandal in the history of Bombay. We rented this big property in Cross Maidan, which is in the very center of Bombay, and put on a huge exhibition. In those days, the advertising in India was yet a new art. So we brought American advertising in a huge way to Bombay. And over 1 million people came to see Prabhupada in that 1 week. The whole country was falling in love with Srila Prabhupada and his Western disciples. And gradually the Indian boys and girls began to accept. At first it was quite a culture shock, I'm sure, from both sides. It was culture shock for us to be in India, and it was a culture shock for Indian people to see this exhibition of their spiritual past in a new way. It was so novel and new to India. It took a while to accept. But gradually Indian boys, for example, at Cross Maidan, one Indian boy student joined us named Raghunath Patil, and he became your beloved Lokanath Goswami. Then in June 1971, the best thing that ever happened to me, Srila Prabhupada appointed me to be his personal secretary. So for 24/7, month after month, year after year, I got to be with Prabhupada, at his feet, at his side. And that began the wildest and most exciting adventures of my life. They're all described here in the book. First place we went as Srila Prabhupada's secretary was Moscow, Russia. Now you all seem to be too young to understand what the world was like in 1970. But it was divided, strongly divided into two camps. Communism and capitalism. That was it. There was an iron curtain between. You couldn't go across that iron curtain. No one could go to Russia. Prabhupada had said, but these Russian people are so entrapped in Maya that they need my help. More than any place on the planet, he said, I must go to Russia. Well, finally, somehow or other, I got him a 5-day visa. And we just left. We had no plan. They gave us hotel room, food, and guided tours for the visa. That was a package deal. We arrived on a Sunday in Moscow, and from the hotel room, Prabhupada's room on the 4th floor, we saw a parade going in the street. We could hear the noise. Prabhupada sat by the window and watched this parade go by. Thousands of goose-stepping soldiers marching in the street. Giant tanks and artillery and rockets, longer than this room, for 2 hours parading by Prabhupada's window. And he watched this whole parade. And then he turned to me, and there was a tear in his eye, and he said, you cannot rule a people by fear. He said, within 20 years, all of this will be gone. The next day, I met one Russian boy on the street, and I brought him up to Srila Prabhupada's room. So in 3 days, we had 3 days left in Moscow, I saw the most powerful exhibition of Srila Prabhupada's mystic potency in all of those years with him. The most powerful 3 days. All described here in the book. He took this one young Russian boy, and in 3 days he made him a pure devotee. How could that happen? It's like right out of the Chaitanya Charitamrita or something. This boy, Ananda Shantidas, he became later. He went on to spread Krishna consciousness underground and under extreme persecution by the government and by the army and the KGB. These people were tortured and put into hospitals and mental insane asylums and prisons. Some of them were even openly killed by the police. Can you imagine? And yet thousands of people became Krishna devotees as a result of this one boy. And yes, almost 20 years to the day after Prabhupada left, the Soviet Empire collapsed, as he said it would. So this story's all in there. So from Moscow we went to Paris, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, and then on to London. And then there's some great stories in here about Prabhupada's first visits to Africa, the wilderness of Africa, how Prabhupada was able to bring Krishna consciousness to the dark continent. Then in October 1971, we came back to India. And then over the next 6 months, from October 71 to the end of March 72, 6 months, was Prabhupada's most extremely powerful exhibition of his accomplishment in India. First, there was the Desha Priya Park conference in Calcutta, Kolkata. Desha Priya Park, the pandal there, 10-day pandal, 30,000 people a day came to see Srila Prabhupada. Then in November, a couple of weeks later, we had the New Delhi pandal. Prabhupada's first public engagement in New Delhi at the LIC grounds in Connaught Circus. It was like hitting the center of the target for India. And you must remember at this time it was a very powerful time in India because you were on the verge of war with Pakistan. You were on the edge. War was inevitable. There were blackouts every night. Sirens going, air raid sirens screaming in the day. This was a very intense period in New Delhi, about to go to war with Pakistan. So, but 50,000 people a day came to see Srila Prabhupada at Connaught Circus for 10 days. And the descriptions of Prabhupada's demeanor, his behavior during that time, you're going to love this one because you'll see Prabhupada as the ultimate politician. Whatever area of knowledge you can name, whatever profession you can name, as a lawyer or a salesman or a buyer or an accountant or a philosopher, teacher, whatever it is, Srila Prabhupada was the expert at that. Expertise. He had the expertise to do everything perfectly. And in Delhi, he was the ultimate politician. And the political leaders of New Delhi all came to meet him. They introduced him at each night's program. The mayor of Delhi, the minister of finance, the minister of defense, ambassadors, educators, scientists, all these people came to see Prabhupada. And he dazzled them. And through them, he made a deep, deep impact on the spiritual priorities and policies of this nation. And just think about that. It's only been 5 years. In 5 years, he came from nothing. He was hatching the Hare Krishna movement in New Delhi. Only 5 years before that. He used to tell me that he would push the paper across Delhi on a cart to take to his printer for printing his first volume of Srimad Bhagavatam. He would push it himself across Delhi because he didn't have the 50 paisa for bus fare. 5 years later, he comes back to Delhi, and the mayor of New Delhi introduces him. He is now the most famous Indian spiritual leader in the world. 5 years later. After these 2 weeks in New Delhi, then Srila Prabhupada took us down to Vrindavan. His first trip to Vrindavan with his Western disciples. We were so surprised. It was just a small, dusty village. There were a few old Vaishnavas loitering about. Oh, look, there's a guy with a bead bag. There wasn't much there in Vrindavan in those days. But Srila Prabhupada took us around to all the places in Vrindavan where Krishna had his pastimes. And he gradually opened our eyes to that hidden magic of Vrindavan. And you'll read the stories here, how Srila Prabhupada planted those first seeds that became the mighty Krishna Balaram temple today. Last time I was in New Delhi 2 years ago, my friends and I got a car, decided to drive to Vrindavan. Let us see Vrindavan, what it looks like now. So we went down the freeway, a new motor expressway. Wow, this is great. We got off the freeway to drive into Vrindavan, and there was a traffic jam. Miles long. We waited almost 2 hours in this long line of cars to go into Vrindavan. And finally a policeman said, "You can't get into Vrindavan today. It's too crowded." So just see what Srila Prabhupada has done. Yeah. Then in December 71, Srila Prabhupada negotiated in Mumbai for nearly 5 acres of prime land in Juhu. Then on to Jaipur as guests of the Maharani of Jaipur, in the Govind Dev Ji temple there, for about 10 days. Those stories are in here. Then on to Madras, Visakhapatnam, Calcutta, and then on to Mayapur. The devotees had been struggling for years in Mayapur to just get a small piece of land, just a few bighas of land. Finally, we had a little place there with one straw and brick hut, mud and straw hut, with a little fence along the road, and one well for water, and that was it. But Srila Prabhupada was so happy and proud. He had finally got something started in Vrindavan. So he went up there from Calcutta and he said, "Now you just dig one hole here, 15 feet, and we will lay the cornerstone for the biggest temple in the world." And that was Prabhupada. That was Prabhupada. We couldn't see his vision. We didn't have his vision. We looked across this small piece of rice paddy. Prabhupada, what are you talking about? The world's biggest temple. How is it possible? Prabhupada always knew what was going to happen. So we laid the cornerstone for the Mayapur property on February 29th, 1972. Now mark this date. We're going to mark this date, February 29th, end of February. Because in early March, then, a few days later, he got a phone call from Chirodakshai in Vrindavan saying, "Srila Prabhupada, come to Vrindavan immediately. You have been given this land in Raman Reti." So we rushed to Vrindavan on March 10th, and 3 days later, Srila Prabhupada had legally acquired the Raman Reti land, and he said again, dig a hole here, 15 feet. It was easier to dig because it was all sand in Vrindavan, and we will lay another cornerstone. So that was on March 13th. So February 29th, March 13th, what is that, about 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, he lays the second major cornerstone for the big temple in India. Then on March 17th, we rushed to Juhu, outside of Mumbai. And on March 23rd, he laid a third cornerstone there. So add that up. That's 3 weeks' time. Srila Prabhupada laid the cornerstones for his 3 major temples in India. How is that possible? Well, you seem to be listening, so I'll just read a little short passage, just to illustrate that. In less than 1 month, Srila Prabhupada has done the impossible. He's laid the cornerstones for his main 3 temples in India despite all odds. Naxalite bandits, floods, cold, heat, lack of money, envious opponents, unsupportive godbrothers, caste Goswamis, a communist-leaning central government under martial law with strict rationing of construction materials, our shaky legal standing, and a handful of young but worn-out devotees. The lands we have acquired are so old, with so many contending proprietors, and so large and in such vital locations. To even think of owning these properties is almost unreal. We are recent arrivals on Indian soil, with very little organization or social standing. And yet, despite these obstacles, Prabhupada's unrelenting desire to please Krishna has somehow prevailed. He did it. Seeing all this from the inside, typing his letters, making his phone calls, huddled with him in late-night strategy sessions, I am in awe. This is Superman beyond anything yet, and he is just getting started. So in that short 6-month period, Srila Prabhupada planted all the major seeds for the ISKCON that you see in India today. On April 1st, he left them for India, for Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Japan, Hawaii, Los Angeles, like that. All those stories are in this book, and that's pretty much volume 2, especially the India story you'll like. And there's more to follow soon in volume 3. But I've written volume 2 especially for you, the devotees of India, so you can better understand the unimaginable foresight and the boundless energy and inconceivable determination of Srila Prabhupada. If there's one little passage from all of these books that sums it all up, I'll just read it to you. Whenever he wanted me to come to his room, he would ring a little bell. Ding, 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 ding. His little bell tinkling even in sleep has become my wake-up call to happiness, transcending all other previous meanings of happiness. I cannot see enough of Prabhupada. The physical beauty of his face, especially his face, captures my eyes from morning till night, and I feast on his endless allure. He trusts me. He depends on me. How can I possibly deserve such mercy? He is in my care, I thought, forcing me to rise beyond all other considerations. I'm his audience. He seems to be energized by my laugh. He tries things out. He floats ideas. I'm his sounding board, his straight man. What do you think, Shyam Sundar? He catches my glance from across the stage, raises an eyebrow like, how am I doing? His smile and his laugh, especially his laugh, are all that I live for. So I'm getting kind of old myself now, but I'm becoming more and more and more optimistic than ever. Krishna consciousness is unstoppable in the world now. Srila Prabhupada always said he didn't want millions of stars. He wants just one moon. And as I look out over this kind of crowd and seeing all your shining faces, I see so many moons rising up. Now you have to carry on this mission to change the world. It's a big risk, but you've got to go out there and take that risk to change the world. Just know that when you risk like that, Krishna has to come in and stand before you and remove the obstacles. By risking big, you get to see Krishna faster. That's the process. And it works. So there's 500 pages in the book. It's a big book, a lavish book with 180 photographs. Most of them you have never seen before. And it's been a vast labor of love. So I'm cutting it short because it's getting late. You all have to work tomorrow. But I'll sign any books you may want over here. They're 500 rupees, the book price. And just know that all the income from these books goes directly into printing volume 3, which by Krishna's grace I should be able to bring you next year in 2021. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So much magic right through this book. I can tell you a little bit of an incident, a small bit of magic that I could see with His Grace Shyam Sundar Prabhu. We were sitting in ISKCON Punjabi Bagh. We had 120 books or so with us, and the crowd was a little bit more than this, maybe about 80-90 people or so. And I was seriously worried that we brought him here, how are we going to get these books out? And then all of a sudden, at the end of the lecture, one man raises his hand and says, I will sponsor all the books that are here on the display for all the brahmacharis. So there was a straight 4 cartons sponsored straight away. I see a lot of big preachers here. Please ensure that you sponsor a few, that we get whatever we brought here out. That's my little sales pitch.
Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you guys.
Hare Krishna. One incident I want to share with you. Actually, I read in 2002 Prabhupada Lilamrit, and when I complete this Grantha, so I'm thinking that who is the hero of this Prabhupada Lilamrit after Srila Prabhupada. So it's my observation actually, and my observation, I believe that His Grace Shyam Sundar Prabhu is the second hero of the Prabhupada Lilamrit. And and since 18 years, I am thinking when the day will come, I will see him personally face to face. And today we are the very, very luckiest person, all of you. We are seeing him is personally and listening his Amrit Vachan. So thank you very much. Be with us. Hare Krishna. His Grace Shyam Sundar Prabhu Ji ki. So by chanting our parampara, we with thanks. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And we will request His Grace Shyam Sundar Prabhu, whenever he came in New Delhi, feel this temple is your house. Whenever you came, please come here.
Next time we'll leave earlier.
Oh, sure. Because Hare Krishna. Hare.
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, सभी के लिए प्रसाद की व्यवस्था है बाहर, कोई बिना प्रसाद के ना जाए। हरे कृष्णा। सभी के लिए बाहर प्रसाद की व्यवस्था की गई है, सभी से रिक्वेस्ट है सभी प्रसाद पाकर ही जाएं। हरे कृष्णा।